you had time to free write, and now I'm gonna give you 30 seconds to share. So go share with your partner what you
Yeah, that's what I write.
Let's have students' names, just like the name,
Alright, give me 5.
the atoms, and
Give me 5.
give names to the
Alright, thank you. What were some best practices that you could identify during today's lesson? Based on what we've talked about last week and in trainings prior to this. What were some best practices? Renee?
The students made their operational definition. It went from known to unknown.
Okay, so known to unknown. Can you give me an example of that in the lesson?
So the students knew what an atom was, and then from an atom went to a molecule and compound. They didn't discover an atom itself. They started to define atom before then. It doesn't have. Or they definitely around here said it was an atom. Or yes, it shouldn't have. Available.
Okay, so creation of operational definitions, okay, and then known to unknown. So you said that students maybe had a common understanding, or at least the students in this classroom had a common understanding of what an atom was and an element, and then created definitions from the models to be made in class, okay? Any other best practices? And by best practices, I'm talking about what's on this poster, and the handouts that we get. Brenda?
So we went from concrete to pictorial, then we talked about the abstract.
Okay. And can you give me, Brenda, an example of where,
Yes, ma'am. So we did the Legos, whenever we were talking about solids, liquids, and gases. We had the solids that were all together, the liquids that were close together but not touching, and the gases that were all over the place. After we did that with the Legos on the table, then we did a pictorial on our paper and on the overhead that was modeled of actually drawing our solid, our liquid, and our gas. And then we actually talked about why gases, what was in the blank space, which is very abstract, what was in that blank area, and it was empty space. So we went from the concrete to the pictorial, and then we talked about the abstract.
okay, does anyone have another example of, where you saw that happen in the lesson? Ashley?
We were talking about how just starting off with real world items, and then the Legos is being the model, and then the pictorial with the diagram, and then the abstract by the writing down scientific words.
Okay, so real world, and then abstract would have been where we constructed definitions?
No, real world, like the
asked us-
charcoal, the model, and
So the everyday objects?
yes.
Okay, so we had to
Real world.
sort. Alright, and then the abstract would have been,
Well, the transition, because then you had the Legos as a physical model.
okay,
And then pictorial when we drew it, and then science. Abstract was the science writing. So tying prior knowledge or life experiences through that process.
okay, okay.
We also included kinesthetic when we all came up to the front and represented gas, liquid, solid.
So student movement. Solid liquid gas. Any other best practices? Aubrey?
A lot of checking for understanding.
Okay. And how was that done?
We did the thumbs up, to the side, down,
Okay.
and even talking with a partner.
Any other ways that you were, or that Laura was checking for understanding? Amanda?
We had her write, and then she kept saying, I want you to write like a scientist and answer complete sentences, read our writing.
I liked how Laura referred to writing like a scientist and speaking like a scientist. Because, well, when I was in Dr. West's class in graduate school, I had to write what my philosophy of science was, and really it's based on understanding how scientists do science, and actually as a student doing science like a scientist would. So I like how she incorporated that into her lesson. Any other examples of best practice, Rochelle?
Checking for understanding well, I would call it Give Me 5, where it's, she said if you understand everything about it, give me a 5. If you understand, usually you go down, like a 3 is I kinda got it, and a 1 is like where you can just spell the words, that's what she said, so.
Okay. In your groups real quick, I want you to talk about, do you think that this lesson addressed one concept or more than one concept? So take 30 seconds, go. And why?
As many parts.
We didn't get really into each
There were many parts of it.
but then the one concept of them working together. The way that they build upon each other. So the building might have been the concept. Does that make sense?
It's about concepts.
Matter, right?
Just the Legos, building I'm talking about my partner.
Three, two, one. Okay, so one concept or two, Gloria, what do you think?
I believe that more than one concept were taught
Okay.
because there was the part of classification, which is what scientists do. That was, for me, that was a process that was learned. And then also the content part, actually defining and redefining atom and molecule and compound. So I felt more than just one.
More than one concept? Okay. Isabel, what do you think? It's Isabel, right?
Yes.
Okay, alright.
I thought that, but then I spoke with Tim, and then I kind of understood that it was one concept with many parts.
Okay, so,
Right.
can you, what was the one concept?
The molecules and atoms and the compounds.
Okay.
Yeah, states of matter, just broken down into different parts.
Do you think that understanding atoms, molecules, and compounds is the same as states of matter? Do you think those two concepts are the same?
My brain, yes, because if I don't understand, they're linked, and to me, since they're linked, they're parts of the same concept. Because if I don't understand what an atom is, I'll never understand what a solid, a liquid, a gas. I could see a solid, liquid, and gas, but I may not be able to identify those.
Okay,
So for me, they were all parts of an overall
okay.
overarching concept.
Renee?
Well, I'm gonna go back to, it's one more concept, because you understand atoms, then from that, you can build on, and then you understand another concept. So, it is linked, it is, but then you understand what an atom, molecule, and compound are first, that's the one concept. They understand that, we did an operational definition,